You know that feeling? That nagging sense that something's a little off? It's this feeling that real, honest-to-goodness critical thinking is just fading away. Well, let's put a name to it.
I mean, seriously, just picture it for a second. You wake up in a world that is so loud, so incredibly fast, and so jam-packed with information that our own minds, these amazing tools we have kind of been numbed into just passively accepting whatever comes our way.
So what happens then? What happens to a whole society when the ability to reason, to really push back and challenge things, gets swapped out for knee-jerk reactions and just repeating what everyone else is saying? That's the real question, isn't it? And it gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Well, thinkers are actually giving this a name. They're calling it collective stupidity. And let's be super clear, this has nothing to do with how smart any one person is. It's about a group behavior, where huge numbers of us start thinking in shallow ways. We buy into narratives without question, and we basically hand over our intellectual independence, a lot of the time without even noticing we're doing it. Okay, so how on earth did we get here? Let's start with the diagnosis. Here's the tough part. Our modern world doesn't really reward deep thinking. Not really. It rewards being fast and fitting in. And you've got to understand, this isn't some accident. We are, in a lot of ways, being conditioned to stop thinking critically. You know, the philosopher Noam Chomsky was talking about this decades ago. He called it manufacturing consent. And the idea behind it is actually pretty simple and kind of chilling. When people are just trained to consume stuff without asking questions, they become incredibly easy to manage and even easier to fool. In that kind of world, thinking for yourself isn't a good thing. It's just inconvenient. So if our thinking is being shaped, what are the tools doing the shaping? We've got to look at the systems all around us. These, you could call them architects of conformity, that have been built not to help our minds grow, but in many ways to kind of shut them down. Let's just start with one single number. Get this. According to the neuroscientist Daniel Levitin, right now, today, we process 5 times more information every single day than we did just a generation ago. 5 times. Just let that sink in. Our brains were not built for that kind of constant bombardment. So what happens when our brains are completely overloaded like this? Well, they do what any system does under stress. They take shortcuts. Instead of doing the slow, hard work of real analysis, our brain just defaults to what's quick and easy. It starts to rely on mental habits, on groupthink, what some call social proof, just to get through the day. And this isn't just a metaphor. Our digital world is literally rewiring our brains. Neuroscientist Maryanne calls us a culture of skimmers. We're always jumping from tab to tab, shattering our focus into a million little pieces. That deep, focused reading that you need for complex thought, it's disappearing. And here's the kicker. You cannot have critical thinking without sustained attention. It's just impossible to think deeply when you're being distracted every few seconds. And, you know, this conditioning, it starts so much earlier than you might think. John Taylor Gatto, an award-winning teacher, he made this really bold claim. He said that our modern school system, which was designed back in the industrial age, was never actually built to create independent thinkers. It was built to create obedient workers. In that system, fitting in gets you the reward, and being truly curious, well, that's often seen as a problem. But look, we can't just point fingers at these outside systems. It's not that simple. To really get to the bottom of this, we have to turn the spotlight inward and look at the battlefield inside our own heads. Because it turns out some of the biggest roadblocks to thinking clearly, they're emotional, they're psychological. And that brings us to a simple but really powerful truth. Real thinking is hard work. It's uncomfortable. It forces us to admit we don't know everything. It challenges our ego, and it makes us look at things we'd probably rather just ignore. And there are some really powerful reasons why we avoid it. You know that jolt you feel? That's cognitive dissonance, when some new fact clashes with something you've always believed. That's uncomfortable. Or when our ego gets bruised because we have to admit we were wrong. And then there's that deep, primal fear of being kicked out of the group if we question what everyone else agrees on. So what do? It's easier to just retreat into our tribe and start defending slogans instead of having a real conversation. The psychologist Erich Fromm absolutely nailed this in his book Escape from Freedom. He said that deep down, a lot of people secretly want to give up their freedom to think. And why would anyone do that? Because true freedom, real intellectual freedom, comes with a scary amount of responsibility.
So what's the deal we're secretly making with ourselves? Well, on one side, you've got freedom, but that comes with responsibility and a whole lot of uncertainty. On the other side, you've got safety, the safety of the crowd that offers a sense of belonging and the illusion that everything is certain. And far too often, we pick the simple answer over the complex truth. And when we do that, we become much, much easier to control.
So, is that it? Are we doomed? Absolutely not. And this brings us to the most important part of this whole thing, how to reclaim your own mind. Look, in a world that is just full of noise and outrage, the most radical, the most rebellious thing you can do is the quiet, disciplined act of thinking clearly for yourself. And the solution, the antidote, it actually starts with a really old idea from one of the godfathers of critical thinking, Socrates. He said the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Now that's not about being dumb. It's an invitation to always stay curious, to never ever stop asking questions, and to have the humility to know you don't have all the answers.
So what does this little rebellion actually look like? Here are 4 practical things you can do. First, ask better questions, especially of your own beliefs. Second, practice what's called metacognition. Basically, take a step back and think about why you think the way you do. Third, really try to understand people who disagree with you. Don't just try to win the argument. And last, and this one might be the toughest, detach your identity from your ideas. You are not your opinions. You are a person who is capable of changing and growing.
Because when you really get down to it, critical thinking isn't just some skill you learn, like coding or something. It's closer to a spiritual act. It's a conscious choice you make to value truth over being comfortable, and to value growth over the false security of being certain about everything. Our culture is addicted to easy answers, endless noise, and just going along with the crowd. But the path of wisdom, the path of the critical thinker, it offers something so much richer. It offers deeper questions, it offers quiet space to actually think, and it offers the courage to truly be free. And let's be perfectly clear on this point. No government, no school, no algorithm is going to do this work for you. The responsibility to think, to really use your mind, that is on you and you alone. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. In this crazy, noisy world, the most revolutionary thing you can possibly do is not to shout louder than everyone else. It's not to fall in line. It's just to think clearly, deeply, and for yourself. You see, there's a quiet revolution that's possible. It's not a revolution of angry mobs, but of clear minds. It's not about outrage, it's about awareness. And it all starts the second a single person decides to ask a tougher question, to choose reflection over reaction. So the only question left is, are you ready to begin?